This afternoon, a teacher shot by her 6-year-old student in Virginia will have her first hearing in court in a $40 million lawsuit that she has filed against the school board. Abby Zwerner was a first-grade teacher at Richneck Elementary School in Newport News. She was shot in the hand and the chest January 6th as she sat at a reading table in her classroom. She spent nearly 2 weeks in the hospital and had to get 4 surgeries as a result of her injuries. She is now suing the school board, accusing the school of gross negligence and of ignoring multiple warnings the day of the shooting that the boy was armed and in a violent mood. School district officials have argued that this should be treated as a workers' comp case. Zwerner's attorney does not buy that.
We don't believe that any first-grade teacher should expect as part of their job characteristic the risk of being shot by a 6-year-old. We don't believe it's workers' comp. I believe the case law supports us. They refuse to budge. They refuse to negotiate. So the suit goes forward.
Zwerner's lawsuit names the school board, the former superintendent, the principal, the assistant principal, all at Richneck Elementary. Their attorneys have argued that there is, unfortunately, a reality of violence in schools, and this problem extends to elementary school teachers. I want to bring in attorney Jesse Weber now, host at the Law and Crime Network. Jesse, good morning to you. The school is taking an interesting approach here, right? So essentially with this workers' comp argument, they're saying the expectation of a teacher should be there's a chance you could get shot in the classroom, that is an occupational hazard?
Pretty frightening to think about, and I guess in 2023, I'm giving it more consideration than I did years ago. It's a move and an argument that has created a lot of controversy. I understand that there were people from that school who said this is a ridiculous argument, but really what they're trying to do from a legal front is limit their liability. They only want to have to cover or only be covered her injuries and any medical expenses and any lost wages. Now, obviously, Zwerner's team doesn't want that to happen because they believe that teacher being shot is not something that is an occupational hazard in the same way that a construction worker would fall off of a site. It's very different. A school teacher shouldn't have to imagine that they're going to be harmed or shot during the course of this. Now, if I had to guess, because we know that the school board actually tried to dismiss this lawsuit by saying this is workers' comp, I would imagine the judge would allow this lawsuit to move forward. I think that this is too much of a complicated issue. I think that it wouldn't actually be covered under workers' comp, and it'll really be up to a jury to determine whether or not this was gross negligence and what those damages would be, particularly for the pain and suffering that she went through after being shot by a 6-year-old.
Are you surprised that the school, the board, the superintendent, the district wouldn't try to settle a case like this?
That's a great question. I was thinking about that today because aside from the workers' comp issue, there's this other issue of what documents and materials they have to turn over to the plaintiffs in this case. And during a litigation like this, not only do they want to save themselves the time and expense and a big payout from a jury, they want to save themselves the embarrassment. So as this case progresses and they might have to turn over documents that they don't want to turn over or that they don't want to be made public, they may have more incentive to ultimately settle this case. They're of the position that they really didn't do anything wrong, that they weren't negligent, that there weren't warning signs, that they were ignored. This was a freak moment, and they are much as victims as Abby Zwerner. But we'll see how long that lasts as this litigation continues.
Right, and so in the process, it's moving forward. Zwerner's team wants the names and addresses of every single first-grade teacher in that school system, and they plan to depose all of them. For what reason and how complicated will that be?
They want that, and they want the personnel records of the administrators as well. They want to understand exactly what these people knew about this student, and also maybe what was the protocol put in place if you felt that a student was a danger to himself or others. Were policies, procedures ignored by the school? Clearly, a 6-year-old opening fire is shocking, but what's also shocking about this is that there were reports that this student had actually exhibited violent behavior before. So who knew about that? And was there a cover-up, or was there just people who were sweeping this under the rug? That's what they're trying to explore during the course of this litigation, and that's why they want to interview each one of these teachers.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.